Thanks, Sam. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Steve Swope, pastor for the interim in Irvine United Congregational Church. And as an introduction, I want to say again to Arnie that we are thrilled to continue this long relationship and particularly to be part of this discussion. I would invite any of you who are interested in asking questions to begin forming a line at the microphones. It looks like Arnie and I are monopolizing things here, but we really don't mean to. Sam, I appreciate the enormous amount of research and thought that you put into this project. One of the things that we have been talking about at Irvine United Congregational is how we might begin really a conversation with Christians of other faith styles, fundamentalist Christians, evangelical Christians, because one of the things that we discover on a regular basis as progressive liberal Christians is that we get shut down. Christianity is about X. It's about signing on to a list of belief statements, and you don't buy the whole package and you're damned for all eternity. And it seems to us that there ought to be some other way of conceptualizing our faith, but there ought to be a way to translate progressive religious concepts into a common language. And one of the things that I appreciate about your book and your comments is that you really throw it out there. But the thing that I'm concerned about with my own experience of discussion with fundamentalist and conservative Christians is that it's real easy to shut the dialogue off as well. And I fear that as constructive as you desire to be, that the door would easily be closed with the kind of approach that you seem to be taking. Right. How can we maintain an openness so that we can begin to discuss and develop the kind of common approach that you'd like to have?
Right, right. Well, I see your point. I've had this attempt at dialogue that has been this book and subsequent communication about the book has demonstrated to me that, yeah, it is a challenge, given how radical my criticism of faith is, to meet people. It's not a matter of meeting people halfway. As you see it, I really think it's an all or nothing game here. And I think that we have 50 years more or less to sort this out, given the spread of the weapons of mass destruction and just disruptive technology. You know, just the ability to write a computer virus that confounds a country for some days. You know, we are being so pressed together by technology now, and the pace of this consolidation of our world is only increasing. So I don't think we have a lot of time, and I am mindful of the effect of my criticism on people. And the truth is, I think it would be a terrible thing if the President of the United States suddenly started speaking the way I speak. I mean, the President cannot get up and say, "We're at war with Islam, I got news for you." But we need a clear appraisal of our situation in the world. And I don't hear that appraisal coming from religious moderates and religious liberals. And I don't see the purchase point theologically where they can stand and say, "Listen, guys, you have it wrong because your interpretation is false." Because that's really what it is. There's nothing more sacred than the facts. There's nothing more sacred than the truth, and we have rival conceptions of what is true. Religious fundamentalists really think that God is letting people fly planes into our buildings because we're tolerating gay marriage. Okay, so it seems to me that to combat that, you really need a place to stand where you can argue about how unseemly that view of the world is, in logical terms, in factual terms, and in moral terms. But, and this is where I think you're going, and this is really where I can meet you halfway. I think there is a huge role for people who talk the talk you talk. I mean, that my language is not really fashioned for export very well. And we need religious moderates who find some way to articulate the traditional game of religion in ways that are not offensive to reason and in ways that do not distort our social policies. But it has to be much more radical than it seems to be. And, it's a real challenge. I am someone who wrote this book and gives talks like this really without any hope that I'm going to make a bit of difference. I mean, there's just no, I just can't, these are the noises I make when I open my mouth, but it's not based on any expectation that it's really going to change the world in any sense at all.
Well, I hope you do make a difference. You mentioned that 10% of people in Sweden are believers and that the trend in Europe seems to be going in a more secular direction. Could you talk a little bit about why in this country the trend seems to be in the opposite direction, if that's true, and why that is?
Right. Well, the trend, religiosity, fundamentalist religiosity became very visible, obviously, in this last election. But the trend has really been stable for many, many years. The Gallup polling on religious conviction in this country has really been flat for 80 years or so since they've been doing it. You ask questions like, do you believe that Satan literally exists? 65% of Americans say yes. And that's been true, give or take a few percentage points for decades. So the question about Sweden and Western Europe in general is interesting. There are some theories about it. I don't know what really explains it. One theory is that when you have state religions, when you have no marketplace that requires the competition among denominations, then religion kind of gets ossified and uncharismatic and people stop going to church. Whereas here we have this marketplace of religions and everyone is hanging up a shingle, and then you have this vibrant ecosystem of ignorance. To mix metaphors carefully.
Thank you.
But I'm not entirely satisfied with that hypothesis about Western Europe.
Yeah. Sam, thank you for all this. I'm one of your pen pals on email. I based part of my dissertation on my essay paper on you. For a secular humanist such as myself, what value, if any, does the Bible have in our lives, in my life?
Well, I think it has the same value as Shakespeare has.
It's not written as well.
Well, yeah, parts of it are written very well. Shakespeare, this is a line in my book, but it's strange that God made Shakespeare a better writer than himself. That should be troubling to us. So, yeah, it's literature. I would look at it as literature.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a lot of wisdom in it. The Bible would not be the Bible. It would not have influenced us as much as it has if there were nothing in there.
Well, it's a moral template, but I wonder if it's a good template, really.
Well, you take Jesus in half his moods, and it's about as good as you get. The golden rule and much of what was said on the Mount. Jesus, the literary Jesus, if that was in fact the historical Jesus, there's no doubt that Jesus was a spiritual genius. There's no doubt that he had realized something really profound about the link between ethics and spiritual experience. But he's one of thousands. This is the other thing that's quite surprising when you get into Eastern religion, when you read the Buddhist canon. It's just the wealth of testimony about compassion and about the possibilities of ordinary people realizing the most profound insights that any mystic ever articulated. This has been sketched out in the East in a way that is really quite comprehensive and